Welcome back here for a year from the last time we had our update from our schools, and we're still virtual. We had hoped to be back in person and provide lunch, but we aren't. In spite of the challenges, the fears, the fatigue, we're still excited to when we do get together. And I know you all are finding when it's virtual, sometimes it helps people with participation when they can't get to a meeting in person. So we look forward to our meeting today. I'm Margaret Feierabend. I'm the board president for Bristol's Promise, and just wanted to note the staff attending today. Melissa Roberts, who's the executive director and is technology extraordinaire with helping out and everything else. Brandy Peters, our community resource navigator for Bristol Connect program, is working at the Bristol Connect program at one of our sites, so she is unable to attend. Samantha Gray, who is working under contract to do parenting education, work with our parenting education network, working to help our parenting educators support each other and spread the word. She also is unable to attend today, and I'm hoping that we will see Tina McDaniel, who is a new employee for Bristol's Promise through our Department of Labor grant that we work with Appalachian Sustainable Development. She is our diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator, and we're just thrilled to begin that work and know that we at Bristol's Promise and our partners have a lot of things that we can do in that area that will make us all better in the work that we do and better in our organizations. We also have several interns and volunteers, and if they are attending, we will introduce them later on. And have several Bristol's Promise board members attending. So thank you, Kay, Lynn. If I'm missing somebody else, I apologize. Okay, if you all can use your little emojis or whatever, if you're here for the first time for this meeting, not in the first time in the new position you might have, but just you've never been to one of these meetings before, if you can show your little hand, that would be great to see who might be new. So Casey, anybody else who's attending for the first time? Kayla, great, fantastic. We always have new people when we're in person or virtual, so we welcome you all. So a couple of announcements from Bristol's Promise before we introduce our program. October is ACEs Awareness Month. Melissa, do you want to just say a couple things about that?
Sure. So in the past couple of years, we've done ACEs Awareness Month in October. And this year, we're doing it a little bit differently. We're doing PACEs Awareness Month. We know that to mitigate the impact, the lifelong negative health impact of ACEs, that there are positive childhood experiences that build resilience. And so this year, we're doing PACEs Awareness Month with PACEs Action Day on October 28th. So check your emails. I hope if you have not signed up for our e-newsletter yet, shoot me your email address and I will add you to make sure that you don't miss anything that we've got going on starting tomorrow.
And that includes a proclamation that both cities, we hope that they will join us in with proclamation. So we appreciate you all and thank you for, I have not internalized PACEs as opposed to ACEs. So I need to do that along as well as probably many of the rest of you all. Also on Fridays, every other Friday, we were doing Bristol Coordinated Community. These began with response to COVID, trying to coordinate services as much as possible and keep each other informed. So those are at 11 o'clock. The next one is on the 8th. So if you're not on that list and would like to be, let us know. And I think it's also on the Bristol's Promise calendar for sourcing. Parenting Education Network, Parenting Educators Network meetings are second Thursdays at noon. The next one is October 15th. So if you want to be part of that, be sure to let us know as well. We'll ask y'all as we go along if y'all can put any announcements and your contact information in the chat so that folks attending, if they are interested in what you do, et cetera, that they can have that. We'll try to do some sharing at the end, but we'll probably have a pretty full program this time. So, beginning a little bit, ACEs are now PACEs, which certainly cover what we've been doing. Trauma-informed care, building resilience. Our Tennessee, Virginia community has been circling this and coming to land recently. We've done risk and protective factors, Search Institute, 40 developmental assets, which is now more focused on developmental relationships, and communities that care, and America's Promise. Those are some of the things that we have done. Bristol's Promise embraces America's Promises, 5 promises, believing that if we can help children succeed by supporting and providing and building resilience with those promises, that we can help our children succeed. And just a reminder, we do it at all our meetings, that those 5 promises include, and I will note that these are promises that are appropriate for our families, for adults as well. They're things that we all need. Ongoing relationships with responsible caring adults, safe places and structured activities during non-school hours, a healthy start and future, effective education for marketable skills, and a chance to give back through community service. So those came based on a lot of the Search Institute's many years of research and data. And as y'all can tell from those promises, our schools are key to our children's health and well-being, and therefore to our community's health and well-being and future. So with that, every September, we are just so pleased to have all our community partners here at the table, and pleased to have our school partners here to update us. And particularly important during this terribly stressful time with COVID, that we thought we were getting to a better place. Also, so we'll be hearing from Dr. Keith Perrigan and Annette Tudor. Dr. Tudor will present first. Keith Perrigan was last year first, so we'll try to remember and alternate. And also Dr. Tudor, I know all of us are involved at various levels, but certainly the Bristol, Tennessee school system has had a lot of challenges and sadness, and we certainly express our sympathies for the loss of very important people, important to our community, so important to our students and to families and more. So with that, oh, let's see, I can introduce her though. Wait, I've got an introduction. So obviously she serves as director of schools for the Bristol, Tennessee City Schools. We appreciate that she accepted that position. She has a BA in early childhood education from Emory and Henry. Her MS is special education from Old Dominion University. And then she has a doctor of education degree in educational leadership and policy analysis from ETSU. She has 10 years as special education teacher with experience in elementary, middle, and high school levels in both public and private. As administrator for the past, and this is some from last year, so it's probably 16 years. Last year is 15. And previously, she's been assistant principal at Tennessee High School, as well as a district curriculum and instruction supervisor. She has a husband who hopefully is good support with the job that she has. And she's a native, he's a native to Bristol, and they have 2 boys, Lance, a sophomore at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and Logan, a junior at Tennessee High School. And hopefully I got those updated correctly. Dr. Tudor, we welcome you. We appreciate your participation and anticipate your presentation. So feel free to add to any of that or correct me in what I said.
No, you got it all absolutely correct. Thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting me to present to you all today, and thank you very much for keeping us in your thoughts and prayers. It's certainly been a challenging school year, one we had hoped would be normal. I'm sure Dr. Perrigan will say the same thing. We were hoping for some normalcy, and it's been anything but normal, certainly in our school year, just with COVID, but also we've experienced some trauma in the past few weeks, and so we're really trying to navigate and work through all of that with our students and our staff. So thank you for your thoughts and prayers. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen. So I have a presentation that I can show you. You all see my presentation? I might not. Okay, thank you. Let's see if I can make that larger. Okay, so obviously we've had some impact from COVID. So I'm going to go through some preliminary data that we've received recently just to sort of illustrate academically where our students have kind of suffered because of COVID. And then I will hit on some of the things that that Margaret mentioned in terms of ACEs and mental health supports. We certainly are feeling the effects of COVID in way more ways than just academic learning loss with our students. Certainly our students have experienced trauma because of COVID, as have our staff members. And so we're utilizing some of our federal funding to support all of those things. So to focus on learning loss first, though, we have had some learning loss that has been documented certainly by test results, but we've also had some successes. So what I'm going to show you just briefly, I'm going to go through several slides of our most recent academic data. Our students did take what's considered the TCAP in Tennessee. It's the Tennessee Comprehensive Assessment Program in Tennessee. We took TCAP tests in May, and we had to reach a certain threshold of participation in order to really have those scores count for us or against us. And so we did have great participation, even though we had students who were remote. Those students had to come in and actually take those tests on site due to state regulations, and we still had great turnout. What you'll see on the slides, if it's in yellow, it means we saw improvement over the last time our students took those tests, which was in 2019. So there was no test in 2020 because of the pandemic, but the last time they test was in 2019. So obviously you can see for English language arts on the screen, we only saw improvement in one grade level, which was fourth grade. So we declined in every other grade level in grades 3 through 8. And then this is our high school data. We did improve slightly in English 1, but saw a decline, pretty significant decline in English 2. These are our math results. The only places we saw improvement were in 4th grade and 8th grade. Everywhere else we saw a decline in grades 3 through 8 math. And then there's our high school results. We saw a decline in high school math across the board, and pretty staggering if you look particularly that last box. It's integrated math 3, which includes algebra 2 concepts and geometry concepts. We had a significant 27% decline in achievement there for our students. So we in particular saw that our middle school and high school students had the most significant declines. Elementary students had less of a decline. I would just speculate, I attribute that to when our elementary students had to be at home, they still had some level of support. I have a junior, as Margaret mentioned, in high school, and I assumed that he was able to keep up and do his work and be somewhat independent. So I think that's what parents thought of middle schoolers and high schoolers. They could pretty much do it independently, and with the lack of a teacher right in front of them, sometimes that was a challenge. So I think that's why we saw significant declines there. My screen's not working. So we also, in the state of Tennessee, we measure growth. So the scores you just saw previously were achievement, the percent of students who were scoring proficient or mastered. What you see now is the students who actually grew a year or better. A score of a 3 means they basically learned a year's worth of material. If it's a 4 or a 5, they went beyond that. If it's a 1 or a 2, they didn't quite get a year's growth. And so this is a a spot of success for us that even though we declined in literacy down to a 3, our students' level of growth still was pretty consistent with previous years. So our students still learned and grew. They just didn't achieve quite like we had hoped that they would. Another bright spot for us would be graduation rates. So our graduation rate still remained pretty consistent. And I'll show you some information in just a minute about how summer school really helped us with that, particularly this year. But so we're doing pretty well with our graduation rates. The tops that you see there, we have an online high school. We've had an online high school since 2012. So that really was beneficial for us in terms of the pandemic. We were already, in a great position to seamlessly transition to online and remote instruction for those students. I'm not moving. So another ray of success for us was we ended up having 3 reward schools: Haynesfield Elementary, Holston View, and Tennessee Online Public School. For tops, that's actually the 4th year in a row, consecutive year that they were a reward school. Reward school takes into consideration the achievement data that I just showed you, the growth data. It also takes into consideration attendance and participation rates in terms of students coming consistently to school. So chronic absenteeism is a factor in that. It considers students with disabilities, our EL, English language learners population, and how well they do, and our subgroups, our minority subgroups, and how well they do. And so Haynesfield and Holston View and Tennessee Online Public School, in spite of the pandemic, were able to show some great results with their students. So that's definitely a positive for us. So obviously what we've turned our focus to now and started really back prior to the summer beginning was, what are we going to do to recover from the pandemic? And honestly, we thought we were going to be in recovery mode from day one of our school year, but we really are not even in recovery mode yet. We're still in a pandemic, and we have actually experienced the pandemic harder this year than we experienced last year. In the first probably 5, maybe 6 weeks of school this year, we had more student and staff cases in 6 weeks than we had all of last year. So certainly the Delta variant hit us very hard and is still hitting us hard. We've seen a significant decline in cases in our district, but it is anything but a normal year. So we are definitely still in COVID mode and trying to recover from that. So part of what we're focused on now is we've received significant COVID federal relief money from the federal government, and we had actually 3 rounds of that. We call them ESSER 1, 2, and 3. ESSER 1 came pretty much immediately. ESSER 2 was last school year, and then ESSER 3, we've just submitted recently our plan to the state to use those dollars. All total, we're almost $13 million worth of funding. That funding has to be spent over the next 3 years. We have to have it all spent by 2024. A little bit into 2025. So that there's really it's great right now that we're getting a lot of funds to help us with recovery in the moment. However, there's going to be a cliff where we don't have that money anymore. And so we have to also be preparing for what happens when we don't have those funds anymore. So we really have to be cognizant of how we're utilizing those funds and trying not to utilize them for positions, for instance, that can't be sustained because we can't necessarily absorb those into our regular operating budget. So we focused on, these are just a few examples of the primary areas of focus that we're using those federal dollars for. We're also not included in here. We're doing a couple of capital projects like roof upgrades, but the dollars are very restrictive. So we have to submit a plan. It has to be approved. We can't just use it for building a new school, for instance, or significant renovations. It has to be for specific COVID recovery purposes. And so in terms of ACEs, for instance, we have added significant mental health supports. We have a full-time school psychologist, a full-time behavior interventionist. We've added mental health counselors in a partnership with Frontier Health, for instance. So really focusing on what can we do to help students and staff, for that matter, overcome the trauma that they've experienced, and what that's going to look like over the next several years. We've added class size reduction teachers. We are in partnership with the state to do some robust low ratio, high dosage tutoring. So a ratio of 3 to 1, 3 students to 1 tutor, 3 times a week, focused on only reading or math at one time for an entire semester. That will happen as soon as we can find staff to hire to do that. Hiring obviously is an issue for everyone as well as us. We've purchased lots of instructional materials to use with students. We were 1-to-1 in grades 3 through 12 prior to the pandemic. With these federal dollars, we've expanded that down to kindergarten. So we have a 1-to-1 device for every student in our district, kindergarten through 12th grade. We've done some significant HVAC upgrades, particularly in our aging buildings where the air quality was definitely of concern, particularly with COVID. Certainly all of the personal protective equipment that came with managing the pandemic, the masking, that sort of thing, we were able to purchase. Extra cleaning supplies, all of those sorts of things. We were able to transition our nurses from part-time to full-time, and we've hired additional nurses, which has been a tremendous help in just managing the number of cases, particularly this school year, the number of cases that we have of students and staff. We've also added COVID testing for our students and staff. Students or staff who are symptomatic in school can get tested right in school. And if they are actually at home on quarantine or in isolation due to a contact, they can schedule an appointment and come to the central office for a test. They can also utilize that to get out of quarantine or isolation a little bit sooner if they test negative. So that's been a positive in terms of keeping our students and staff in our buildings and as safe as possible. I mentioned summer school. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but we had probably the most robust summer school program, certainly in my tenure here in Bristol, that we've ever had before, and probably in our history. We had more students participate and lots of great things happened this summer. We're also able to focus on intervention programs and hiring instructional coaches to help support our teachers with all of that. So for summer school, we've never had this kind of participation previously. Typically, our summer school has focused primarily on high school students who are needing to recover credits if they failed a class in terms of graduation requirements. They need to recover that class. Sometimes we've done some reading camps for our early grades, but nothing like what we had this year. So our elementary grades 1st through 5th grade, we had about 278 on average attending. We could have it as high as 300 in a day. We hosted that at Fairmount Elementary School. Obviously, we served meals to those folks. We provided transportation. That's why you see the school bus there, which I think is why we got so many kids in attendance. And we also offered an after-school type program in the summer. So it was 4 weeks. The summer school day lasted from 8 to 2:30, but then we had a 2:30 to 5:30 after-school program to accommodate the needs of our working families. So it wasn't as easy for some of them to just come pick their students up at 2:30. So we had an after-school kind of program in the summer. For secondary, our middle grades and freshmen, 6th through 9th grade, we had about 160. Our typical middle school summer school would be about 30 kids. So it's a significant increase. For our students who failed a class last year, we had 95% of them who recovered and passed those classes, which is pretty significant. And then our secondary grades 10 through 12, we may have had 15 to 20 students in previous years who would attend in summer school for high school. And typically those are seniors who have to recover a credit in order to graduate. This year we had 117 students who came. They recovered 154 credits, and we were able to add an additional 8 students on top of the ones who had already graduated on time. 8 more of them earned their diploma in the summer, which obviously is great for our graduation rate, but more importantly, it's necessary for those students in terms of their future to actually have a high school diploma. So that's been a tremendous blessing for us. So that's all I have to say about COVID and our recovery at the moment. Like I said, that's really still all ongoing. We're really not fully in recovery mode. And I'll allow you an opportunity to ask questions in a moment, unless anyone has questions right now before I move into our another great bright spot, which is our middle school. So we obviously opened our brand new middle school in August. And so I think last year when I was here, I showed you the graphic representations and the building, the pictures that I noticed in the presentation from a year ago where we might have had some steel posts somewhere and some dirt had been moved, but that was about it. So significant transformation is now we have a building. And so you can kind of see what the rendering turned into in terms of our building. I'm sure many of you have probably driven around that and have seen the exterior of that. That was our ribbon cutting opportunity. You can see the 3-story, this part is the 3-story academic wing. That's what it looks like now. So pretty impressive. This actually is a picture from before it was even open. So it's really changed since then as well in terms of grass coming in and that sort of thing. It's really a beautiful building. Our students are making great use of it, obviously, and our staff love it. The old building that you see that's still on Edgemont, if you've driven by that recently, you've probably seen lots of the windows are now coming out. They are in the process, or were in the process of doing the asbestos abatement from the old floors and ceilings that were in there. That process has been completed. So now they're starting to really kind of deconstruct it and tear it down. And soon, hopefully in the next month or two, it'll be down completely. And so it'll be a new view from Edgemont. That will actually be a parking lot. So that's pretty exciting. These are some pictures from the interior. This was the graphic representation of what we call our learning stairs. And you can see now what that looks like. So we actually made use of that on our open house day. Those are the learning stairs. And then this is a little sort of theater space down here. So really kind of a beautiful spot. We have this gorgeous chandelier that thankfully didn't get cut from the budget because it's really kind of a showpiece, and our students are really proud of how beautiful it looks. This is a different view from the learning stairs. So this is if you had the front entrance is to my back and you're facing the Library Media Center, which is an open, beautiful space, and the steps in front of you kind of fall out for that theater view. This is kind of what a typical classroom might look like. And what I really want to draw your attention to is the flexible seating options that are in here. The whole building was really designed for collaboration amongst students and staff and classrooms. And so this has a couple of different seating options. These are high tables, and then there's these individual chairs that are on casters. And so they can roll quickly into a small group where they can separate. Certainly with COVID, it's been great that we have opportunities to spread kids out. Hold on a second, there we go. This is another view of that. So you can see a different classroom that has a different configuration. All of our, with our ESSER dollars, we were able to upgrade the technology that we have in those classrooms. And so everyone has one of these interactive boards, which are fantastic. They're better than a Promethean board or a smart board because there's no glare, there's no need for a projector. So it's kind of more state of the art. The other thing I'll point out is there is a double doorway between these classrooms. That's so that those doors can be opened up and two classrooms can join forces, or you can switch students in between two classes if you want to without actually having to go out into the hallway. So it's a bit of a safety feature, but it's also another collaborative instructional strategy that teachers can use. Some of our classrooms actually have a retractable wall as well, so they could really open up and have instead of just two doors opened up, they could have two classrooms opened up entirely. So it allows for lots of flexible spaces. This is what a science lab looks like. We did not even have a single lab space at the old middle school, so it's pretty amazing that now we have 3 classrooms like this on each of the floors and lots of storage space. This is what the chorus room looks like. So all of the spaces were really designed for the programs that they're supporting. This is the view of the gym. So this would be the old building would be sitting where this parking lot is. It's going to come down and this will be the new view. That's what it looks like currently. You'll notice on this picture here, there's an awning that runs the length of the building. So the awning's not on this building yet, but when the old building comes down, that'll be the view from Edgemont. And then of course we kept the gym and renovated it, which has been, not only was that a cost savings for us, but we could have never built this gym back in terms of the quality and the size and the features. It actually, we tore out the lower concrete seating. If you recall ever being in there before, there was lots of seating here. We tore all that out and put retractable bleachers in. So you can actually run 2 courts side by side if you wanted to have different activities going on, either 2 volleyball games or different activities from 2 gym classes, or you can run the full length like a regulation court would be. So it's very versatile. Okay, I'm moving quickly into career technical education. Some of you've probably already seen this information, but we've got some great things going on, and I don't want to miss an opportunity to let everyone in our community know of opportunities to partner with us. And so I'll focus on those a little bit with our career technical education. We are trying to constantly add programs of study for our students so they have more opportunities and a more robust variety of course offerings. And so the ones that are in blue, we're adding in the coming either next spring or the following school year. So agriculture, collision repair, and HVAC. And the ones that are in yellow, we added this year. So auto maintenance and light repair, business management, machining, nursing. We actually are having a certified CNA program in partnership with Ballad Health. So our students who take those courses can come out as a certified CNA, which gives them a head start on sort of a seamless pathway to a career if they want to pursue nursing. Then residential and commercial construction, we had a pre-apprenticeship, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And then we added welding back to our course offerings at Tennessee High School, and we're actually in our 2nd year of that. So the partnership opportunities are, we have lots of businesses and industries in our region who are supporting our students and offering work-based learning opportunities. So that means that our students are able to leave. Some of them leave as early as 11 in the morning. Most of them leave around 1, and they actually go to work for one of these industries. They get high school credit for us, and they either get internship type hours, or they actually are paid in some circumstances from these businesses. So it offers our students an opportunity to take what they've learned in our CTE courses and then apply it to what is that going to look like in a real job. And it gives our businesses and industries an opportunity to sort of nurture and mentor our students. And some of them actually get hired and work for them and go straight from high school into a career, which is great. The ones that you see in yellow are new ones that we've added this year. So we're always looking for partners. If you know of partners that want to, are willing to support our students, our high school students in coming to work for them, please by all means reach out to me. We'd love to have more partnerships. We actually added summer internships, so it doesn't have to be something that happens during the school year. If you have opportunities for our students to come and do internships with you in the summer, we had several of those this past summer for the first time, which was great. So that's also another opportunity to partner. We were fortunate enough to receive 2 pretty significant grants. One of them was the Innovative High Schools grant, which was $2 million. If you heard recently, Friendship Ford, Mitch Walters and his family donated the old Volvo building on the Parkway to our school district, and we are going to transform that building into, it's going to be the Friendship Career Center, and we will actually have the biking academy that will attend there. So some of our students will be housed there. There will be those new programs of study that I mentioned previously, agriculture, HVAC, and collision repair. He left, Mitch Walters left there's obviously bays for auto mechanics, but he left all of the lifts for us, which was fantastic, just a wonderful donation for our students. So we're going to make great use of that facility, hopefully looking at partnering with Northeast State and TCAT to do some dual enrollment, and maybe eventually have that facility and potentially the facility at Tennessee High School available for even some adult opportunities for adults to earn a credential or an industry certification so that they can go to work in some of these areas that we're focused on. So that's been a great addition to our community. We hope that we'll have that building renovated and students in there by next August if all things go as planned. And then we've also, Deidre Penley is my CTE director. She does a great job of looking for money anywhere she can. And she wrote a grant for the Perkins Reserve Secondary Grant, $50,000, which is allowing us to do some more dual enrollment opportunities, industry certifications. It's also allowing us to expand some career exploration to our elementary and middle school so that we're not waiting for students to get to high school for them to try out one of these classes. We're trying to expose them to them younger so that they learn about different careers. And when they get to Tennessee High School, they can kind of zero in on where their interests are and where they might be talented. This was more about the Viking Career Center. And then industry credentials, that's typically what our students do is they have to do a program of study. And so if they're in CTE, they have to take 3 courses in a particular program of study. And usually by that 3rd course, they're prepared to take an industry certification test that will earn them one of these credentials. And in many cases, these are the exact credentials that businesses and industries in our area require of their employees. And so we're really expediting that process and getting our students prepared for that while they're in high school so that they can have a seamless transition to some sort of career. This is another area that I would say that we're open to partnership with, businesses and industry. If you don't see one listed there that a business or industry utilizes, we are more than willing to figure out ways that we can align our curriculum to support whatever that industry certification is and help our students earn that credential. So if you know of those opportunities, please, that's another opportunity for us. If you want to let us know, we're happy to partner with you on that. And then we were fortunate last year to add the first pre-apprenticeship in the state for construction, which was fantastic. We had J.A. Street has a program and a partnership with Northeast State where they send employees through their apprenticeship program, and it's a 72-hour course. And the NCCER certification comes at the end of that. What we did was we aligned our curriculum so that students in our construction classes work toward earning those hours and that credential while they're in high school. And so really the partnership with J.A. Street for this pre-apprenticeship is that our students are guaranteed, if we send a student to J.A. Street and say, this is a good student and we'd like you to consider them, they're guaranteed an interview. They don't have to hire them, but they're guaranteed an interview if we recommend them. And actually they've hired 2 of our students. The first one was last year when we had this new program, and they've recently hired a second one. And so that those students will start working for J.A. Street while they're going to school at Northeast State to earn those credentials. And so it's really, again, another opportunity for a seamless transition from high school into a career. So a great benefit for our students, but also utilizing what we're teaching in our high school and aligning the curriculum so that we can support workforce development in our community. So it's been a great, very positive step. We're hoping to add another pre-apprenticeship in manufacturing. And that's all. I was trying to go really quick, so Dr. Perrigan had plenty of time. I'm going to stop sharing, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Also, folks can put questions in the chat. I have a couple of questions, just hopefully short. So I know the middle school, there was open house and I got to visit some at that point. But for it, as well as the Friendship Center, are there going to be opportunities for the public to visit, or for anybody on this call with that are serving some of your students or whatever, to be able to visit and see in person the facilities, et cetera? So
yeah, we did have an open house, obviously, for Tennessee Middle School. We have because of COVID, we've clamped down on visitors again. So we haven't really allowed visitors probably since the start of school, once we had a surge. So once that opens back up, and it hopefully will open back up, we'll be happy to host another open house. We certainly have allowed folks to come in for athletic events and that kind of thing. But yes, we can do that. When the Career Center opens next August, we'll have another sort of ribbon cutting opportunity for the public to see that and kind of see how that will benefit hopefully the community. So that might be a little bit later in the future. Tennessee Middle School, I would be hopeful that we could do something in the spring.
And just one more question from me is that besides having a new facility, this is the first time that on our Tennessee side that we have had the sixth graders as part of the middle school. Bristol, Virginia certainly has been doing that for some time, as well as that's probably a frequent model to include sixth grade, although there's lots of models. So how do you see, how has that transition gone, especially during these hard times? And how are those students handling the transition?
So I think they've handled it very well. I would say it's been very positive. The building was actually designed to really accommodate for that. So obviously there could be a pretty significant difference in emotional maturity between a sixth grader and an eighth grader. And sometimes their sizes, just their physical sizes, are significantly different. We've got some really little sixth graders and some really big eighth graders. So the building was designed so that there is a sixth grade floor, a seventh grade floor, and an eighth grade floor. That's not to say they don't interact at different times. They certainly do, but it was intended to make sure that developmentally how the programming is established accounts for those services. So sixth grade is still in a teaming environment, which means a student has a math teacher, an English teacher, social studies teacher, and a science teacher, all located on the same hall, very close proximity. That's intended to sort of support them in the transition to what's different from elementary school into middle school. That gives them a year to get through that transition. And then our eighth graders, for instance, follow more of a high school schedule. And so they could have classes on any side, any hallway of that floor, and they could have teachers all over the place, and they're not necessarily with the same students, peers all the time. So they are trying to transition and get ready for high school. So the building and the programming is really designed to try to support them. I believe that it's been a great thing. I think it's for a lot of reasons. Developmentally, we needed our sixth graders with us in our middle school. It's also freed up space in our some of our more crowded elementary schools. So it's been a positive from the perspective of in kindergarten through fifth grade that they've been able to really focus their elementary programming without sixth graders in the building. So it's been positive on both ends.
Thank you. And just a note that Bristol, Virginia, with the state of Virginia, did research and collected data on risk and protective factors, I think probably by the year 2000, and worked on those. Bristol, Tennessee, it was in 2005 with our Communities That Care, and transitions and mobility were one of our largest risk factors. And those, we know there's a lot of back and forth across the state line, and that certainly is a challenge for schools and service industries and trying to keep those kids focused and provide what they need. But it's also those transitions that are built in when they go from preschool to kindergarten, first grade, into middle school to high school. So paying attention to those that we have a little more control over and know that those are risk factors. So that's a good thing to be very aware of that and the needs that are there. So anyway. Okay, does anybody else have a question that they'd like to speak? Or I don't see any in the chat. That's reflective of your coverage of the topic, Dr. Tudor. So thank you very much. And if y'all think of questions, do add them to the chat and we can ask them of either folks. So Dr. Perrigan, thank you very, very much for being with us today. And we know you are also lots of challenges certainly with COVID and facility challenges that have been going on. And we understand that there are some good news and potential with some funding with what's happening, et cetera. So we are glad to hear from you today. And I've got a brief introduction that you can then make any additions or corrections. But Dr. Perrigan began his education toward his career at Virginia Highlands and transferred to UVA-Wise with a BA in history. He completed his MED in educational leadership from Radford and his doctorate in educational leadership and policy studies from Virginia Tech. He served as a teacher in Abingdon High School and administrative roles in Washington County, Virginia, and he was then superintendent of Norton City Schools prior to his joining us here in Bristol, Virginia. So, and Dr. Perrigan, we're looking at that building and we wish we were there in your beautiful room that we enjoy meeting in. We're in process of talking with Jeff Shelton about how to do a hybrid meeting, and here we are. So if you can go ahead and talk with us, that'll be wonderful.
All right, I've got too many screens open. Let me make sure I open the right one.
We'll stick with you.
All right.
Looking good.
I got to get back to the top. There we go. All right. So do you have me and can you hear me?
I'm seeing your screen. Try the other screen. I'm seeing the screen that has your notes, except you don't have notes.
Oh, shucks. Let me just do this.
It's almost there. We can see it. It's good.
How's that? Is that better?
No.
I'm going to try one more thing.
Yeah.
Those multiple screens are messing me up there.
I know. They're wonderful, but challenging some of the time.
How about that?
Yes. That's
All
it.
right. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Tudor, for setting the bar so high. I'm looking forward more next year to being back in person, but also that I get to go first so I don't have such a struggle competing with all the great things that you guys have going on there in Bristol, Tennessee. I will just say that I've watched from afar and prayed diligently for the folks that have dealt with all the tragedies in Bristol. And you should be commended for the exemplary job that you've done of taking care of your school community during unimaginable times. So I did want to start by saying that. So we, obviously we are supportive of the 5 promises that Bristol Promise supports as well. Caring adults is really what we're all about. And especially during COVID, having a safe place is certainly paramount to all of our students. Healthy starts, effective education, and opportunities to serve. I think you'll see those themes woven in to the things that I share with you today. I'll start out you'll hear a lot of the same things that Dr. Tudor talked about. COVID has consumed us since March of last year. And, last year we took a balanced view of risk as we made decisions about how we were going to open school. What we didn't know is how much risk associated, health risk associated we would have with COVID-19 with our students. But what we did know is that for, nutritional needs and learning loss and the social emotional impact and how much parents depend on us for, even though that we're not a child care provider, certainly parents depend on us for that. And, child abuse and other essential services, we knew that if we weren't open, schools weren't open in person, that those risks would be there. And we were unsure of the risk health risk associated with COVID. But our board decided very early on that we were going to do everything that we could to provide in-person learning so that we could avoid the other risks that were associated with COVID that were not health related. And thankfully, we've been very successful. We opened last year in August. Right from the very beginning with full in-person learning for anybody that wanted to take advantage. Almost 70% of our families chose that option from the beginning. And by the time the school year was over 80% of our families were learning with us in person. we were able to stay open. We proactively went virtual right after Thanksgiving and around Christmas, because we knew that with all the family gatherings that there would be surges in our school community, but also potentially in our school. And so we did go virtual for a week or two around those holidays. But despite a huge winter surge in our community, we were actually able to maintain a very safe learning environment for our students. I think several factors attributed to that. First of all, our board gave us a very clear vision from the very beginning. Our return to school planning team developed a phenomenal plan. Our staff then implemented that plan with great fidelity. And then we also had great support and collaboration with our parents. And so if we asked our parents to follow a mitigation, we really had almost nobody who was resistant to that. And so we appreciate all of our stakeholders working with us to make sure that we could provide a safe learning environment for our students. And also I want to say another thank you. I think Virginia and Tennessee have handled the pandemic very differently. Some things I think Virginia has done a better job with, and I think some things Tennessee has done a better job with. But because in Virginia, we had some really unrealistic caps on events, we were able to partner with our friends across the state line to use some of their venues to make sure that our students had the same opportunities that students before them had had. And so we played our football games last spring at Stone Castle, and we even went across the state line to do our proms and our awards assemblies, because we couldn't do those based on Virginia law. So we do appreciate all the cooperation and collaboration that we have with our friends across the state line. But with all that being said, even though we were maybe a little bit rebellious to the stipulations that Virginia set out, we actually had 0 outbreaks in our schools. And despite the fact that we were only one other school division in the Commonwealth of Virginia had more in-person learning hours than we did. That's because they actually ended up opening up on Fridays at the end of the year for in-person learning. But we actually only had 2 examples of in-school transmission. And that was, both of those were related to athletics. So we were very proud of our success last year. And so going into this year, we had, like Dr. Tudor, we had really hoped that this would all be completely about recovery. Unfortunately, it's been more about, dealing with the pandemic in the present. But we do have 95% of our students who are participating in in-person learning. The other 5% are doing a virtual or part of a virtual academy. Bristol for Tennessee is a small school division, but Bristol, Virginia Public Schools is even smaller. And to think that we could man a virtual academy on our own, it was just unthinkable. So we actually partnered with 17 other school divisions in Region 7, which goes from Pulaski all the way to Lee County. And we're partnering to provide a virtual learning opportunity for our students. And so last year, our teachers were teaching in-person learning, but at the same time, they were serving our virtual students. And so by partnering with other school divisions in Southwest Virginia, we've been able to provide virtual learning opportunities without impacting our own teachers. And so that has been very successful. We do allow folks to apply to be part of that virtual academy. If those students were successful in virtual learning last year, we will approve those applications. However, for those students who were virtual last year but did not experience success, we have required that they come back to learning in person with us. Just like Dr. Tudor said, we are seeing more student cases per week than last year, but we still have not experienced in-school transmission. So we're thankful and feel really blessed that we've had that much success. And we also recently announced that we're increasing mitigations because we saw other school divisions on up the interstate who were having to move to a virtual learning format. We feel like that is the worst case scenario for us. So we are trying to be as proactive as we can to prevent moving to a virtual format. Even though we are having more cases per week than we did last year, we still aren't seeing transmission in our schools. We have had some staff absences, but we've not had enough staff absences. Like say, for example, Pulaski County, they've had to go to a virtual format, and they are running limited bus routes because of bus driver shortages. And so thankfully, we've been able to avoid those same scenarios. But so far during the pandemic, we have had 238 students and staff who have been quarantined because they've had a close contact with someone who's been positive. But because I really believe our mitigations are so strong, because of that, we have actually had none of those students who've been placed in quarantine actually end up testing positive. So we are really proud that we have the plan in place that we do. And, obviously everybody who comes into our schools currently are required to wear a mask. And we have, a ton of other mitigations in place. But what we are seeing is that masks and increased vaccinations, that's the way to successfully navigate a pandemic. Another reason that we've been successful is last year we started, actually going into last year, we had already started the partnership with Southwest Virginia Community Health Systems. And we basically at Van Pelt Elementary School have an urgent care facility. So if any student or staff member at Van Pelt has a medical need that they need to have addressed, they can actually go to this clinic during the day. They can get a prescription. They can, get a doctor's note. They can get anything that you would get at an urgent care clinic. They can get that service right at Van Pelt. And what really made that partnership so important last year is that they could also do rapid testing. And anytime that we had a student or a staff member who was exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, they could go immediately to the clinic. They would take the test, and within 15 minutes, we would know whether they were positive or negative. And that helped us in two ways. Number one, when students or staff were positive, we were able to get them quickly out of the building so that we were able to ensure that we didn't have spread in our schools. But secondly, I just can't tell you how much stress relief we had whenever we had a student or staff who tested negative, because we didn't have to worry or wait 3 or 4 or 5 days to determine what impact that might have on our school system. And so that our partnership with Southwest Community Health System has been phenomenal. As a matter of fact, it's been so good that in December, we are going to expand and add a clinic at Virginia High School. So students and staff there will also have access to this service. I will add that currently, if a student or staff member from anywhere else in our division besides Van Pelt want to access the urgent care clinic, they can do so either before or after school, and not during the school day, as to avoid those disruptions. But we will be adding the clinic at Virginia High School, which will serve all of our students there. And we have early indications that we will be receiving a grant that will give us the equipment we need to be able to provide this service in a telehealth format to the remaining schools. And so we're really excited about that partnership with Southwest Community Health Systems and our ability to send this out from a telehealth standpoint to all of our schools. Another thing that we're really focusing on, just like we're requiring masks in our schools, we're really encouraging our folks to get the vaccine. We have given a $500 incentive to all of our staff members who either have already had the vaccine or who get the vaccine. And for all of our students who are eligible for the vaccine, our school board is making a $100 contribution to any extracurricular activity that they're involved in, because we really just want to find ways to, without forcing folks to get the vaccine, we are looking to encourage folks to get the vaccine. Regardless of how you feel about masks or the vaccine, it's become such a political issue. Here's what we've come to realize: that if we want to get back to normal, if we want our students to experience school the way generations of students before them have, the only way that we're going to get back to normal is if we see an uptick in the folks that are getting the vaccine, and if we wear masks until we can get through the recent surge. So, we have gotten a little bit of pushback because we have taken such a strong stance on encouraging the vaccine. But we'll take that pushback because we want to do everything that we can, first and foremost, to make our students and staff safe. But also, our worst nightmare is to have to go back to virtual learning. And the way to do that, in our opinion, is to increase vaccines and to continue wearing masks and having other mitigations. So the results of that, you may have saw a story on WJHL where they looked at 10 school divisions in our area and the percent of positive COVID cases in their schools based on, and they adjusted for the number of days we've been in school and student enrollment. And as you can see, Bristol, Virginia has fared very well in that category, the best out of the 10 school divisions that were surveyed. And it's also pretty noticeable that Virginia has did a little bit better in this area. And I'm sure that's because of the mask mandates that we had. But anyway, we're just going to continue to keep our nose to the grindstone and continue to do everything that we can to make sure that we provide in-person instruction for our students. You know, what we saw last spring or 2 springs ago when everybody had to be on a virtual format is that child abuse cases and neglect, there were more reports of that. And we, you know, that's one of the things that we want to avoid. We want to make sure that we're laying eyes and hands on our most vulnerable students at every chance that we get. But even going back to the academic side of it, you know, we know that student learning is meant to happen in person for most students. So we do have some students who can thrive in a virtual format, but for most of our students, learning in person is the best way to go. And in Bristol, you know, we are one of the highest poverty school divisions in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. And as I think everybody on this call probably knows, typically high poverty school divisions don't perform well academically. Well, Bristol is an exception to that. Our students actually were the 40th best performing school division out of 130 school divisions in the Commonwealth. And that includes all the affluent school divisions in Northern Virginia. And the graph that you see there in front of you is taking poverty into account as you look at student achievement. And so if you go from right to left on this, that tells you the further you are to the right, the more poverty you have in your school division. And the further you go from bottom to top is the higher that you perform in Virginia, it's the standards of learning. And as you can see, Bristol is one of the highest, one of the furthest school divisions to the right. So we're one of the highest poverty school divisions in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But as you go up the scale, we are actually one of the, you know, we're in the top third of performing school divisions despite the amount of poverty we have. And when you account for poverty, Bristol actually performed 7th best in the Commonwealth in relation to poverty. We also, as you break that down into the different categories in reading and in math and in science, our students were in the top 30 in almost every single category. And our Black students, our economically disadvantaged students, and our special ed students were in the top 20 in many of those categories as well. And so, you know, obviously our teachers do a fantastic job of providing instruction, but I attest our success this past year in the middle of a pandemic to the fact that we were dedicated to providing in-person instruction to our students. And we just appreciate everybody who played a role in helping us to make that happen. So I'm getting ready to shift gears. I'm happy to answer any questions about our response to COVID-19, but it may be better just to wait to the end and field everybody's questions unless you just have something burning right now. All right, so I'm going to move on. So actually yesterday I was in Richmond. I've been appointed by Governor Northam to serve on the Commission on School Modernization and Construction. You've probably, if you've read the newspapers in the last 4 years, you've known the struggles that Bristol, Virginia Public Schools has had with school facilities. And unfortunately, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, that's not an uncommon story. And so a commission has been developed to look at the construction and modernization needs all across the Commonwealth. And of course, Bristol, Virginia is one of those school divisions that struggles in that area. And so just to give you an idea of looking at school divisions across the Commonwealth, if you look at schools in Virginia that are over 50 years old, the estimate is it would cost $24 billion to replace those. And so that's a pretty significant total. Keep in mind that in the city of Bristol, Virginia, we have 6 schools. 5 of those are over the age of 50, Virginia Middle being 112 years old. But our newest school is actually 48. It was built in 1974. So almost every one of our schools falls into this category. And so hopefully we're getting closer than we ever have been to closing some of our older schools that have needed to be closed for a long time and building a new elementary school so that we can have a phenomenal facility just like the one that Dr. Tudor showed you at Tennessee Middle School. Just to give you some perspective, Highland View Elementary School was built in 1937. Stonewall Jackson Elementary School was built in 1948, and Washington Lee Elementary School was built in 1968. And there's going to be a quiz after this to determine how many folks on the call can tell us who the president was when these schools were built. Now, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do a quiz, but in 1937, FDR was president. In 1948, Harry Truman was president. And of course, Washington Lee, which is one of our newer schools, was built in 1968, and Lyndon Johnson was president. I'd say many folks on this call were not alive when these schools were built. As a matter of fact, my dad, who just is almost 83, attended Highland View when it was relatively new in the early 40s. The reason that we're continuing to try to get to build a new elementary school, I won't read all these to you, but as Dr. Tudor mentioned, asbestos is a big concern for us at those older schools. We do have moisture infiltration, which, as you know, causes mold and mildew. We have air quality issues. None of those schools are completely handicap accessible. Stonewall Jackson is a little more handicap accessible than the other two, but at Washington Lee, for example, we have four levels there, and there is no elevator whatsoever. At Highland View, we have 3 levels with no elevator. Last year, year before last, we actually had a 5th grade student at Highland View who had broken their leg. And because the 5th grade classrooms are on the top floor, the cafeteria is on the 1st floor and the library is on the 2nd floor, we actually had to transfer that student to Van Pelt for their last year of elementary school because they couldn't access everything they needed to at Highland View. And I won't go, obviously there's lots of reasons for us to want to build a new school, and I won't read all those, but you see them there on your screen. So how we got to where we are today, back in 1997, the Virginia Department of Education came in and did a facility inventory of all of our schools. And in 1997, they recommended that Highland View and Washington Lee be phased out of service. Because of a lot of other things were on the minds of folks in Bristol, whether it be a landfill or a golf course or a retail establishment there at the falls. Those things got pushed to the side. And in 2011, our board actually brought in an independent consultant to conduct a facility study. And at that time, they kind of reaffirmed what we already had learned in 1997, and that, Highland View was actually functionally obsolete because of its site topography, internal circulation limitations, and so forth. So in 2013 and 14, our board actually made it a focus goal to pursue building a new elementary school and phasing those out. We've been making a little bit of progress very slowly since that time, but then the Virginia Department of Ed came back in 2018 and actually were surprised that we hadn't done anything about their 1997 study, and again recommended that actually went a step further and said that Highland View and Washington Lee should actually no longer be used. So we've made some progress. Our board approved a comprehensive agreement to build a new elementary school in October of 2018. About a year initially, City Council voted not to approve that, but we brought it back to them a year later, and they did approve it. Right before COVID started, we put that project on. We stalled it just for a minute because we thought a new property in the center of the city was going to become available. And we had maybe a potential angel investor who was going to help out. And then COVID hit, so all that kind of went to the wayside. But then this past August, our school board did reactivate that comprehensive agreement. And in about 6 weeks ago, we learned from the Department of Education that we actually can use some of those ESSER funds that Dr. Tudor mentioned earlier. We can use $2 million of those to apply that towards a down payment for new construction on a new elementary school. So we are getting really close, and we hope this is a rendering of what it would be an intermediate school, and that would be right beside the current Van Pelt Elementary School, which would become a primary school. Under the current plan, we will be keeping Stonewall Jackson open and using some additional CARES and ESSER funds to do some pretty significant renovations there. So we're really excited and we're hopeful, and we hope to meet with City Council very soon to kind of finalize the path forward. And then we would look to get final approval from City Council either in late November or early December. So everybody keep their fingers crossed, and maybe we'll have another new school in the Twin Cities of Bristol. Just to give you another idea too, the crisis in Virginia is really, the crisis actually happens in high poverty areas more so than it does in affluent areas, as you can imagine. And so it has become an issue of equity. Those regions, Bristol is in region 7. Those regions with the smaller bars, all of those regions represent the high poverty areas in our state. And those that with the high bars, those are the more affluent areas. All right. And so I am going to move into kind of talk about some CTE things that we're doing. This is a very exciting new program that we have in Bristol, Virginia. It's called the Bearcat Bridge. And the goal of Bearcat Bridge, as you see in the first bullet, is we want to have a transformative shift in our school culture. This is a really popular thing for a school superintendent to say, but really for too long, we have focused on getting our students into four-year colleges. And every time that we make that push to our senior class that, you got to go to a four-year college, you got to have your college plan. Every time that happens and a student makes a different decision, whether it is to go straight to the workforce or straight to the community or go to the community college after high school or go to get a trade or industry certification, it's almost like we're telling those students that they're a failure. If you don't believe that, ask a student where they're going to school, what they're doing after high school, and you will 9 times out of 10, if a student's going to the community college or going straight to work, they'll tell you that answer in a very apologetic tone, like it's something they shouldn't even do. And so we're going to try to change that mindset. And even though we do want to continue to help our students who want to take that track, go into four-year colleges and universities, we also want our students to be proud when they go straight to the workforce or when they go straight to the community college or into a certificate program. So we're actually going to start career awareness beginning in elementary school all the way down to kindergarten. We're going to start having conversations about that. And then we'll have career fairs for our 4th and 5th graders. We will be actually hiring a coordinator to oversee all of this and to provide to serve in mentorship roles to many of our students. Over the course of this year, we will actually have 60 career cafe events at Virginia Middle School and Virginia High School. And just like Dr. Tudor mentioned, those community partnerships are key. So if any of you would be willing to come in and talk about the careers where you're working, we're going to try to connect you with students at Virginia Middle School and Virginia High School who have that career interest, so that you can tell them what they can expect from that career, and then they can ask you questions about it. So really trying to get our kids not only thinking about the careers that they want to do, but also connected to those careers as well. And then we're going to have what we're calling a career launch, very similar to what Dr. Tudor said is going on in Bristol, Tennessee High, where we'll be setting up job shadowing opportunities and internships, and then even apprenticeships as well. So in addition to that, we'll also have a Bearcat Bridge advisory. This will happen every month, and students that are part of the Bearcat Bridge will be assigned an advisor. They'll go in and have monthly conversations about what they need to do as far as next steps of preparing themselves for what happens after high school. Every one of our seniors will leave high school with an e-portfolio. It's not just a resume, it's a whole portfolio of the skill sets that they've developed while they're at high school, so they can carry that e-portfolio with them anytime that they're going into a job, doing a job application or an interview. All of our seniors in the Bearcat Bridge, we're also going to connect them with mentors so that they have somebody that they meet with twice monthly that's not part of the school system that can help them meet the career goals that they set forth. And we're really excited about our partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. Our Bearcat Bridge planning team met with the Chamber of Commerce, and they shared with us the skills that employers in Bristol, Virginia, and Bristol, Tennessee, and Sullivan County are looking for. And so now our graduates who are part of the Bearcat Bridge, we will check off that they've met all of those, the skill sets that our employers in our local area are looking for. And they will actually, students who meet all those criteria will graduate with a seal on their diploma, which is the Chamber of Commerce Seal of Excellence. And then finally, maybe the coolest thing about the Bearcat Bridge for some of our students, many of our students live in here in the city of Bristol, and going to Abingdon to the community college is, you might as well tell them to go to Virginia Tech, because getting from Bristol to Abingdon is just as hard for them as it would be for them to get to Blacksburg, because they don't have transportation. And so we are actually starting a Cars for Careers, and for students who successfully complete the Bearcat Bridge program, but don't have the opportunities to go to a job that they may want simply because of transportation, we're going to connect those students to a car. Now, it's not going to be a brand new car, but we have already had 2 donations of cars for this purpose, and they're not brand new cars, and they certainly have some maybe mechanical issues. However, we're going to send those cars to our auto mechanics class. And so our students are going to work on those cars, get them drivable, get them functional. And then when a student graduates from the Bearcat Bridge, from Virginia High through the Bearcat Bridge program, and they have those transportation needs, we're going to try to provide as many cars as are needed. And so, like I said, we already have 2. We're in the discussions with 2 other folks who are considering donating their cars. So if you know somebody that has a car that may just need a little bit of work to make it functional, or if you know somebody at a car dealership who might want to make a charitable donation, we do have a foundation that they can make these donations through, and they can get the tax write-offs or credits that they would need. But this could really mean the difference between a student having a job that could turn to a career versus a job that they just have to do because it's the one that they can walk to from the city of Bristol. And then I actually don't have a slide. Oh yeah, I will tell you that just yesterday it was announced that because of our Bearcat Bridge program, we are one of only 5 school divisions. As I mentioned earlier, there are 132 school divisions in Virginia, but we earned the School Division of Innovation seal from the Department of Education. So we're really proud of that. That's hot off the press. We just found out about that yesterday, and we're really excited about being one of only 5 school divisions in the entire Commonwealth to receive that designation. One other thing that I will say that I should have included in the presentation, but I didn't have a slide for, I know that there's been a tremendous focus on ACEs through Bristol's Promise. That's been something we've been working on for 4 or 5 years here in Bristol, Virginia. But we also just announced a partnership with the United Way of Southwest Virginia. We'll be one of 5 school divisions in Southwest Virginia that will be partnering with them to, we've been doing some ACEs work, some trauma-informed work, trauma-responsive work for several years now, and we think we're doing a pretty good job. However, oftentimes we're blind to the things that we could be doing better because we're so focused on the things that we're doing well. And so we'll be working with the United Way of Southwest Virginia to do an inventory and surveys about the services that we're providing. First, obviously we want to identify the strengths and the things that we're doing well, but we also want to identify those places where we're not doing so well so that we can develop an action plan to serve that group of students better. So we're really excited about that partnership, and we will definitely keep you up to date about our as we go through and we start to collect that data. So with that, Margaret, I appreciate the opportunity to share some of the things that we have going on about Bristol, Virginia Public Schools. Like Dr. Tudor, we could probably do a 2 or 3 day conference talking about all the things that we're proud of and all the things that our students are doing that make us proud. Hopefully you saw in the Bristol paper today that one of our students is a national champion in pool and will be actually going to Austria over the weekend to compete in a world competition for pool. So many examples that we have like that that we'd love to share and brag about our students, but unfortunately because of time, we'll have to settle for that. But I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Right. Thank you so much. And congratulations on several fronts and the in-person days. Oh my gosh, that's such an accomplishment, and several other things. And we know that it is a challenge for a small school district in Southwest Virginia that competes with the rest of Virginia, with the rest of the state. So that's a lot of shining in spite of those challenges. So that's tremendous. So we're really proud of the work that y'all are doing and the recognitions for that work that you're getting with both students that are succeeding and also the innovation, et cetera. So also it's great to see collaborations. We're glad that Tennessee could help out some of our perhaps faults helped you with your, that's, we try to do that across state lines in all different areas when we can. Does anybody have any questions that haven't been asked? And anybody in the chat to ask any questions? We're a quiet group today, so does anybody have anything that they want to, so Dr. Perrigan, that's fantastic, and I'm going to transition to our group to see if anybody has anything they want to add. And I think some folks who are new have added their name and their name's there. Add your contact information if you will do that, so that we can add you to lists, and also so that others have that contact information, or we have it if people are trying to contact you. That would be great. Does anybody have anything they want to share with the group to be sure that we all hear?
Hello, this is Caroline Rodriguez from Tennessee Voices Survivor Connection Program. I just want to say that I'm really amazed about the great things that they are doing in Bristol and Tennessee, as well as Bristol, Virginia. And so glad to hear all those great things. Also, I did put in the chat all the information about our Survivor Connection program, which is the one that I serve. Now, Tennessee Voices does have a lot of programs, and we do serve a lot of counties. My counties are all northeast side, so Bristol is one. Bristol, Tennessee is one of our areas that we serve. And all we want to do is try to help these families that have experienced trauma, any type of trauma. And what we do is we provide education to the parents. We come in once a week and we provide education and let them know how they can help their children not have the effects of ACEs, and how to parent through ACEs, because I know that that's something that is very important in Bristol, Virginia. So that's something that we do. We provide advocacy for these parents. We teach about the juvenile justice. We teach about self-care, and we also teach them how to build a support network. And this is a free program for families. We do work through referrals. So if anyone wants more information, they can email me. I put my information on the chat, and I've enjoyed everything that's been said today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. So anyone else have anything they'd like to add? I'll just, and Abby's putting her information in. So folks who are new to service, that'd be great, or changing positions or whatever. I would like to just say a couple things. One is to encourage the use of the Unite Us platform. That is a way for us to communicate together, to support our folks better together. It is being supported by the state of Virginia, and then also by Ballot and the Strong ACC. And it only works as well as the use that people put to it. So encourage everybody to do that. I know Family Promise of Bristol, Dottie Havlick's here, that we are using that in addition to our required database. And Bristol's Promise, we are hoping to use it even more than we already do. But if we can all use that as a region, I think those innovation awards and the progress we can make would be tremendous as we increase the use of the Unite Us platform. Also, I'll say Bristol's Promise is working a lot with the Strong ACC. The ACC is the Accountable Care Community. And there's a lot going on with it. So as time goes on, we'll see even more. And also want to say that real proud of our Bristol's Promise with we worked with a workforce development program in West Virginia, and are being consultants for Appalachian Regional Commission power grant that they got. And we anticipate we'll be able to share what we've learned with the Bristol Connect program, and be able to make lots of contacts and get to practice with that program more and collect more data on it going forward. So we're really very excited about that opportunity. And anybody else have other things? And Melissa, I'll ask you also, do you have anything to add? She does not. Danielle Dye, you joined us from United Way, Southwest Virginia, and Dr. Perrigan's talking about partnerships. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, I felt like Dr. Perrigan teed us up very nicely about our partnership with one another. So that was a great shout out. So thank you, Dr. Perrigan. We are just plugging right along. Our trauma-informed community network group is in the middle of finalizing our strategic plan. And so that is something that we are working on. And the First Lady of Virginia has requested she's working on a resilience tour for the state, and she is going around to meet with different trauma-informed community networks across the state. And so she will be meeting with a few members of our network October 28th, because she will also be down here for our Rural Resilience Summit. So if you haven't heard of our Rural Resilience Summit, we are having that this year. It's going to be on a virtual platform called Socio. And there are different tracks that you can follow around workforce readiness, kindergarten readiness, trauma and resilience, and then collective impact. So that is something that we are also gearing up for. But Mrs. Northam will be sitting down to speak with us about the work that we have completed up to this point, as well as talk with two other networks from New River Valley and Roanoke Valley, because we are the closest ones in this region to her for this tour. So we're excited to talk about our Trauma-Informed Schools initiative, as well as all of the other things that we are doing. And we also did, when we were setting up our plan to discuss that, we talked about the Bristol's Promise Group as well as the work of the ACC, because one of the things that we have that's in our favor is a lot of regional work, and that sets us apart from other networks across the state. So we're very thankful for Bristol's Promise and the work that you all you share our work, we share your work, and we continue to work across those state lines. So thank you.
So Danielle, if you, and also Melissa, I failed to mention the TIC meetings that Bristol's Promise hosts, and then Danielle's network as well. Danielle's is Southwest Virginia. Ours has always included Bristol, Tennessee and Bristol, Virginia, but we are now doing more representing, bringing folks in from Northeast Tennessee. So if both of y'all can put information in the chat for if folks want to do those meetings. And I know the Bristol's Promise TIC are the third Thursday, the opposite months from our youth networking meetings. And they are from 10 to 12. And then Danielle, your meetings are usually
the first Wednesday every other month. So we are the same month as you all. We tried, Melissa and I went round and around and tried to not make those the same month, but we're on opposite ends of the month. So right. Okay. I'm at the beginning and Bristol's Promise is at the end of the month. So.
Right. Yep. So if y'all can put information in, it's a great group to join. So, and we'll let them go ahead and put that in so y'all can collect. Plus we will send out the recording with the chat so that everybody who receives our emails will get those in the next day or so. Also, Dr. Perrigan and Dr. Tudor, I hope it's okay if once we have the recording, I will share that with both city councils and encourage them to watch. I think it's a great opportunity that y'all provide. And I think particularly our council members they may know a lot about their own school system, but may not know what's happening across the state line. So I think it's opportunity. And certainly, Dr. Tudor, I've seen some presentations, but I learned a lot today too. So there's never enough time to cover everything. So, and Dr. Perrigan, I know a fair amount, but learning about some of the recognitions and the actual data that y'all have is impressive. And just to support you, I think just recently the newspaper had a study of data in the state of Tennessee, which does show that masking, the systems that have masking are doing much better on COVID transmission than the ones that are not. So certainly support your stance and believe that that is the way that we need to move forward to help our communities, but particularly our children, and for that in person. So anyway, also Tina McDaniel, if you can put your information in the chat as well. We introduced you shortly right before you came in. So we are excited that Tina's joined the Bristol's Promise team. So, all right, I think we're a little bit late, but y'all, I was real nervous, both of your presentations for how long they were going to go. Y'all did great. And it's jam-packed with lots of information. So we thank you so much. And I think also with recording, it means some other folks who weren't able to be with us will be able to benefit as well. So appreciate you very much and appreciate your staff for everything that they do. And just can't say it enough. So appreciate it. So we'll see you the next year from now, but hopefully a lot in between. So, and call on any, this is your support system in the community. So we're here for y'all in any and every way.